10 steps to building a mobility routine that actually works. I'm going to take you through these steps. I'm going to give you some examples. And our goal today is for you to leave with all the tools you need to establish your own routine that you can follow consistently to actually get a really nice benefit. You can feel better. Though I guess that depends on your goals. If you don't want to feel better, that's okay. So step 1, establish your goals. What do you want to accomplish? How do you want to feel? And how soon? Okay, so what do you want and what's the time frame? That's going to help with the rest of the steps. All right, so in yellow, I add extra notes, extra context for some of these different steps. So do you just want to maintain? Do you want to do daily activities? Do you want to play sports? That's going to determine what kind of commitment is necessary to move towards your goals. Okay, so step 2, assessments. What I recommend for this, keep it simple. I have a CARS assessment, breathing assessments. Do these to find your lowest hanging fruit, to find the things that are going to make the biggest difference for you right now. Now, up in the top left, I have a toolbox. Okay, so I have links to videos that introduce CARS to you. I have a breathing assessment, and I'm going to go into an example routine here in a few minutes. So you can click on those. You can follow an assessment. I'm going to have a link to this. If for some reason you do not get that link, you just let me know, and I will send it to you. All right, so for assessments, take notes as you go, okay? So I have some videos that give you some insight, but I want you to take notes. You can even take videos of how you move so that you can assess, okay, what do I need to focus on? Okay, and this gets to very related step 3, priorities. Okay, so based on our goals, based on our assessments, what areas do you really need to prioritize? Okay, so usually, depending on how your breathing assessment goes, maybe you want to do some breathing. It's generally a good idea. And then which joints, which body areas do you need to prioritize? Choose 2 to 3 maximum. 2 to 3 maximum. Okay, this is really important. We want few priorities for now. You're going to have time later on to work on other stuff. Right now, we need to focus and hone in on a few maximum priorities. Okay, so which areas take the most stress and or feel the most limited or painful? That can help you identify this. I'm going to go through examples for myself to help you get a better sense of how to prioritize. Okay, step number 4, time. What amount of time can you commit to every single day? Err on the low side and think, what can I do on my worst day? So my absolute worst day, I got no sleep. I had a bunch of crap come up that I wasn't expecting. I just have very little time and energy and focus. What can I still do? Okay, maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's a little more than that. But you want to err on the low side, okay? Lowball it. And yeah, this has to be something you know you can commit to. If every single day isn't realistic, I like 3 to 4 days a week so that you can go every other day. And if you miss some days, you can still get in your quota. All right. So then step 4, we want this to be simple. What is the simplest way you can address your priorities with the time you have? Okay. Not with the time that someone you see on Instagram has. Okay. Not what a pro bodybuilder, a pro athlete has. With your time, what's the simplest way you can address your priorities? Simple, easy. That's what we want. So, for example, it's usually 2 to 4 reps of CARS, joint rotations, for the joints around your priority areas. Generally, going with that is a great way to start. Okay, once we've established that simplest way, we want to build out. Okay, and this is down the line. This is not immediately. So, progress by adding or increasing intensity and volume of training. Okay, so now what can I do on my best day? All right, on my absolute best day, say I have 15, 20, 25 minutes and I feel amazing. What can I do? Because we want to be consistent, but we also don't want to hold ourselves back if we can do more on certain days. We just don't want to make that best day an expectation for every day. So start by increasing volume for priority areas, add low intensity CARS and stretches for the other joints. So for my priority areas, I'm going to increase volume. For the other areas, I'm just going to add in a little bit for them so that I'm still addressing them. Because this is a big thing that people deal with is like, I want to work on my ankle, my shoulder, my back, and my neck. Okay, we have priorities, but we don't want to just ignore everything else. Building out here is where we can address that. 7, maybe the most important, no matter what you're doing, consistency. We want to follow our program with about 85+% adherence for at least 1 to 2 months. So we want to do it more often than not for at least 1 to 2 months before we decide, hey, this isn't working or I need to adjust. Okay? Just do the simple stuff for now. Don't worry about the rest. Okay? Maybe you're doing training sessions in addition to your daily routine. Awesome. For now, for your daily routine, just keep it consistent. Okay, then we want to track our progress. So as this is going on, we're going to track how we feel, record our progress clearly in writing and video. This allows for subjective and objective feedback. This is really important because our perception can be way off with the progress that we've made. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this soon. And our progress is never going to be linear. Okay, don't be too reactive with day-to-day changes. Look at longer-term trends. So maybe I feel amazing today and I feel tomorrow. And I feel okay the next day and then great and then terrible. So it's never going to be linear no matter what you do, no matter how long you've been doing this or how much time you put in. All right, so zooming out, looking at weeks and months is a better way to gauge your progress. But in order to do that, you have to record it and record it the day of rather than trying to think back and remember. All right, cool. Check in after 1 to 2 months. 1 to 2 months, not 1 to 2 days, not 1 to 2 weeks. Answer the following questions. Have you been consistent? Are things better or worse? Or the same? Have your goals changed? Answer all of these questions and, oh, look at that. See that note? It's the same as that one. I forgot to add more. All right, so I'm going to talk about this. Don't worry. So after 1 to 2 months, answer these questions. Now, have you been consistent? If you have not been consistent, don't worry about changing things. You did all the work of establishing your goals and your priorities based on your assessments, and you came up with a nice, simple plan to work on your priorities. Don't just throw that out. If you have not been consistent, you got to be consistent before deciding this approach is wrong, right? So go back, be consistent for at least a few weeks, ideally at least a month, and then come back to this step and you can check in. I find the biggest thing here is that people are not consistent and then they bounce around to other approaches because they think it hasn't worked, because they haven't given it a fair chance to work, okay? Now, how about if you've been consistent and you've gotten better? Awesome. We're going to go back to step 2, reassess, and see if you have the same priorities. If so, you can build out a more aggressive routine, all right? So you've been consistent, you've gotten better, you can now add some progressions, add some extra intensity or complexity to this because you've established a routine that you can be consistent with, okay? We don't want to add a bunch more on before we've been consistent for a while. Cool? All right, so let's say you have been consistent. You've been sticking with it, but you're either feeling worse or the same. Then we're going to go back to step 2, reassess, check your notes to ensure you didn't make progress. Okay, so this goes back to perception because I've worked with people for years and years, and it's very common that someone will say, I'm just not making progress. I don't know what's going on. Like something's wrong. I've been putting in the work. I'm like, yeah, you have been putting in the work. I had one person I worked with and we took her first workout that she ever did and she went through it 4 times within the time it took her to do it once from like several months before that. So it's really easy for us to underestimate some of our progress, which is why it's important to track and record our progress so we can look back and we get here and we're thinking, ugh, I'm feeling worse or the same. Make sure that you actually are feeling that way and that you haven't made significant progress because it can sort of set you off on the wrong path if you convince yourself you haven't made progress, okay? Our perception isn't always accurate, all right? That being said, if it definitely is worse or the same, try increasing the volume or intensity of your routine. Or you can reach out to me. I can give you some tips. Okay, so we've established the priorities. We still have those same priorities. Try adding a little bit more volume or a little bit more intensity to drive better adaptation. All right, excellent. Now, step 10D. Goals changed, go back to step 1, reestablish your goals. All right, so it's important to always keep in mind, check in after a month or two. Are my goals the same? Because if they're not, then continuing to do the same thing may not yield the best results. All right, and this one I kind of skipped for a moment. Consistent and better, reassess. By now, with an established routine, you may also have more time and energy to devote. Factor that into your updated routine, right? So if you've been consistent, you can progress. You may be able to progress the time that you can devote each day as well. But again, we want to get some time and consistency and success with that under our belt before we start adding in complexity and other barriers to doing it. All right, so now let's go through just a little example from me And I will give you the link to this as well. I'll add it. Actually, it's on this page. So, all right. So for me, goals. I want to have buttery smooth hips, super mobile, feeling great. I want to reduce knee pain. I want to jump super high, sprint super fast, astoundingly high. Not quite right. All right. I want to be specific. So my priorities based on my assessments and my goals, I want to improve hip rotation and mobility, knee rotation and strength, ankle, Achilles, mobility and strength. Okay. So if I want to jump and sprint, that ankle and Achilles better be strong. So my basic daily routine, hip cars, full knee cars, ankle cars, dorsiflexion, roll, and peel. All right. Very basic, right? It's 4 things, but we want to err on the conservative side, keep it super basic. So I've got that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to establish some supplements. All right. So these are not my priorities. These are my priorities. These are supplemental things that I can do for the other areas. And this is where, if we have extra time, I can go, oh, I'm going to just give enough to maintain these areas while I improve these areas. Okay. Then I also like to establish some priority extras, and writing all this out is really helpful. So you can just plug them in when appropriate. Okay. So for my priority extras, for the hips, foot planted hip rotation, 90-90 internal rotation lift, 90-90 external rotation lift. So these are extras that I can put in, extra volume for my priority areas. So this is for the hips. This is for the knees, patellar cars, half kneel stretch. This is for the ankles, banded ankle rotation, ankle inversion, and eversion stretch. So now I have some priority progressions. So the basic routine I initially established, this is going to be progressions of all of those things. I'm going to add some intensity. Hip car with a ball behind the knee cars and knee rotation isometrics, ankle cars with weight, dorsiflexion isometrics, pushing without moving. You're creating a lot of tension for the connective tissue. All right, then I've written down, if I'm going to do a 10-minute routine, maybe it's just these initial 4 things, right, based on my priorities. And we have moderate rep ranges. So that may be, honestly, for me, that's probably going to take 5 minutes. So maybe I double that. But let's, for the sake of this exercise, let's say this takes 10 minutes. Let's say, okay, I'm progressing, or I have a 20-minute routine, or this is a good day, right? I'm going to increase the volume, more hip cars, more knee cars, more ankle cars, more dorsiflexion, roll, and peel. I'm going to add in some of my supplementals, shoulders, spine, and toes. Then I'm going to add in some priority extras, 1 for the hip, 1 for the knee, 1 for the ankle. And that is a really nice way to establish a longer routine. Stick with this. Yeah, we want to stick with it for a while before making significant changes to it. So this is going to be my routine, all right? It's going to be somewhere between this at the least and this at the most. I'm going to try to do it almost every single day. And after a month or more, okay, when I get really comfortable with it, I can add in some more of these progressions. Or I can replace some of these. So instead of the regular hip cars, I just add the ball behind the knee. So hopefully this gives you some ideas for how you can do this. It's relatively simple. Once you're familiar with a lot of these cars and other mobility exercises, you can make decisions for yourself. So for me, my pain areas, the areas I need to be strong, these are my priorities. And based on those priorities, based on my assessment, I've built out basic routine, supplements, extras, progressions, and then I've defined a 10 and a 20-minute routine. When you have done that and done all that work, it makes the rest easy. You don't have to think that. You just wake up and you're like, this is my routine. Oh, you know what? I can do more after my initial 5 or 10 minutes. Awesome. I already have written down what I'm going to do. Okay. And any extra, you can do extra, but that's just bonus. Okay. Don't even worry about defining that right now. You're just going to do this stuff and then worry about the rest later. I hope this has helped. Please reach out if you have any questions, and have a great day.